Welcome to Model Engineers Laser. My name is Holly and this is part 16 of our jack build. In part 15 we fitted the reach rod and we did the mid, forward and reverse setting and the basic valve position. Today we're going to fine tune the valve gear. Something that's really important to note before we do anything, when you come to doing your own valve gear at home, make sure as we're rotating the wheels to make everything adjust, that you rotate the wheels in the same direction. So if you overshoot and go the wrong way, don't rotate the wheels in the opposite direction to go back, go all the way around. And that's because there's a tiny bit of play in every single joint that passes through. So I don't know if I'll be able to, I don't know if you can see that fine turn of the wheel there. Turn it like that a bit and zoom in. Okay, so there's a tiny bit of play there and none of the rods are moving. So that is a good example of why you need to keep the wheels going in the same direction. So the first part is we're working in forward gear. So I'm just going to knock that into forward gear just here. And then we need to make sure that we're in dead centre. So I'm going to be working in a forward direction with my wheels. And now to get dead centre, as you rotate, it only needs to be by eye. If these two rods are in line, you're at dead centre. Now, in dead centre, in the roundhouse instructions, it says that the front port should crack open once it's on dead centre. But I'll see if I can get it on camera. Right. Sorry, it's a bit blurry because I'm zooming quite a lot there. So, as I was saying, roundhouse say that when you are in forward gear and you are on dead centre, the front port should crack open on dead centre. And I had a bit of a fiddle before I started filming. And we can't get it. I've even got Ed to come and help me. It's about 10 degrees after centre. So we've already done this back one because I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing, because this is a learning curve for me just as much as it is for you guys. So we've already done the back one for Ed to show me what I'm doing, for me to then show you. So yeah, this is about 10% out. And to achieve what we need it to do, we are going to adjust the valve on the spindle, and we need to make sure that the return crank, which was this down here on an earlier video, I'm saying down here, I'm out of shot now because I'm zoomed in. I'm going to zoom out again, sorry if it makes you feel a bit queasy. So I'm going to turn it that way around. Is it all? There we go. So we need to make sure that the return crank still needs to be at 90 degrees. Now, when we did that in an earlier video, we did it by eye. So it may need, at stages, this undoing and tweaking. We did do that on the other one, so don't worry. Like, I'm not doing it perfectly first time. We did have to adjust it, so this may need some adjustment as well. So the first thing I need to do is remove this section here to enable me to turn, as our spindle is currently out of sync. So this is going to be difficult to make sure it's on camera and you can still see what I'm doing. Hopefully that's got it. Right, so when we put those on, they weren't particularly tight anyway, so I should just be able to hold it with my finger. There it goes. Sorry, I just knocked the camera and knocked everything, so started again. So now I've got this, and here we know we need to adjust this. I'm going to turn this round half a turn just to give it a slight adjustment. I'm going to go anti-clockwise. Should rotate quite freely. This will move up and down in here, so don't panic if it, like, you slide that. That's not a problem because we're going to adjust that here, and then when we return this rod, I don't want to turn it around again, into there, it will adjust its length as we put the pin back in. Now, I have no idea how many times I'm going to be putting this in and out and turn it round. You just want to be doing it a quarter turn, half a turn at a time to make sure you don't overshoot shoot where it should be. So when you put the pin back in, don't bother doing it up tight or putting the nut on the back or attaching this back up, because you're going to be going spare, taking it in and out and in and out and in and out. So let's have a look. Now I've attached that back onto there. So going in a forward direction, now rotate it all the way around so we are in the forward, set forward, and they are in forward. So at that point, the front port here, I think you can just about see on the camera, should be peeking open. Now, the next stage of this is we're going to rotate the wheels in the same direction, and we want this in dead centre, set back. So, I guess that's pretty right actually. And at this point, the port should be closed, and it is not. So we need to do a bit more moving and setting backward and forward. You might find if you get this right one way and it's not the other, it could be that this needs adjusting and it's not at the 90% that it should be. If your return crank's not at the 90% that we set it to earlier, it can throw all of this out. So I'm just going to spend a bit of time now tweaking between the backward and forward and setting this right. So now it's back together, just to make sure nothing's moved if you've messed about with everything. Do another full rotation in the direction that you've chosen. I want to make sure we are dead centre there. And then we want to be looking in here. Can you see in there? There's a tiny... Pick the camera up. Sorry if it makes you all a bit motion sickness. Get out the frame. You see it's just peeking. It looks a lot bigger when I've zoomed in. If I zoom out, it won't look as massive. So we've just started to peek there. So we've we've got that set as we need it. Now you'll see I have assembled this back together, and that's because I've finished tweaking it. So I ended up doing 2 full turns. So now if we turn that, when we rotate the wheels, so they're in forward dead centre, we've got our port closed. I should really turn it the other way for you to see. Can you see in there that the port's closed? You have to take my word for it, I think. So that when we're in dead centre, the port is closed at the front, and then when we are at back dead centre, it is closed also. Which means that this side is actually better than that side, because as I said at the beginning of the video, that side is about 10% out. Now, the next check is to make sure that your angle of your cranks here are fairly even. So, I think you can see that there. Yes, so I'll look... As I'm looking into the ports here, and I'm going to look at the back one first. I need to get up so I can actually see. You want to make sure that as that goes round, there, you see the slight angle of this crank here isn't central. That's absolutely fine, because that's just beyond the dead centre there. Probably smidgen more. So then when we do it for the other way, shot too far. You want to make sure that the angle is of a similar, it's not completely parallel. there, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. If you don't think they are equal, then you need to do some more adjusting of everything. Don't think you can actually get it wrong with these because of the way that Roundhouse build them, but it's just good to know if you're building a different engine and you're using the same method. If they are wrong at this point, you need to do some more adjusting. The next stage again is to do the whole thing again, but to check it in reverse gear. Let's turn that, and if we pop that into reverse, we're going to do the whole process again, rotating wheels. This time we're going to rotate them as if the loco is running in reverse, and check all the holes again, and all our ports are right and that our angles are right. You might need to do another adjusting, but ideally you don't want to be doing too much in reverse because it's going to have a counter effect on the first. This is why I've not filmed it all, because it is quite a lengthy process. And like I said, 10% at this point is not too bad. Roundhouse run their engines in, and we're going to have to readjust everything afterwards. So Roundhouse run 8 hours in forward and 8 hours in reverse, and then adjust everything in because everything moves and everything tweaks. So 10% tolerance I think is okay, because we're just going to adjust it for now. The next thing we can do is to put our seam chest covers back on. For those of you that saw me putting the seam chests together before with our O-rings, you will be familiar with the Vaseline technique, or petroleum jelly if you don't want to put a brand name on it. Just in the groove quite generously to help make the O-ring sit. And we put the screws in there to hold it all together. I need to take them off without losing them. It's a fairly fragile task because it is holding this to that way you've set your O-ring previously, so you do want to be as careful as you can to not shift it all about and have to reset the whole thing. I'm going to take that one out. I'll get the steam chest covers out of the little packaging that they come in. Make sure you put them on the right way round. They are countersunk on the top because the screws are countersunk as well. I'm just going to put a bit of Vaseline on the O-ring itself. I like just a bit. Bit too generous on that bit there. Depending on how fragile your hands are, you might want to put the O-ring in place before you take the screws out. But it depends how brave you are, I suppose. Put opposite corners of the screws in, and this is where having a build frame also comes in very handy because it's just that slightly higher off the table and you can adjust it if you need to. No, I'm not going to do those up ridiculously tight because that's the whole point of an O-ring. I also need to make sure I get the other ones in perfectly. The other thing you need to do after you fitted the steam chest is just to make sure that everything is nice and tight, especially this pinch joint on here, so it doesn't move and twist everything as it goes around. go. And that is that side of the steam chest fitted. Like ridiculously tight, but I also don't want it loose. I'm going to fit the other side, and then I'm going to double check the pinch joints on these off camera, because it'll make it a really long video otherwise. And there we have it. Steam chest covers on. Everything's tight where it needs to be tight, or tight enough I should say. And oh, it's done reverse gear. Put it in mid gear. A good habit to be in. And I think we are ready for it to be running on compressed air. Slightly scary thought. So that's something to look forward to in our next video. Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to our page. And we look forward to seeing you on our next video where we're giving it a run. Thank you.